Welcome to this explainer on the DaVinci Resolve color grading masterclass. Let's just dive right in, shall we? For a lot of creators, opening up Resolve for the very first time is, well, it's terrifying. It literally looks like the dashboard of a spaceship. And staring at raw footage, trying to magically make it look professional, it can feel like this massively intimidating technical chore. But today, we're going to completely flip how you view that whole process. We're taking a journey from seeing color grading as just another technical box to check off to actually mastering it as one of the most potent emotional storytelling tools you've got.
There's this famous saying in post-production, color grading is the invisible language of cinema. Just think about that for a second. When you're watching a massive Hollywood film or a really high-end commercial, you don't always consciously notice the color, right? But you absolutely feel it. Color instantly grabs the audience's attention and guides it right to what matters in the frame. It creates mood, it defines exact time periods, and it totally transforms ordinary, everyday footage into something deeply emotional. It's really the silent narrator of your entire project.
So here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the invisible language. Then, we'll break down correction versus grading. Next up, the professional toolkit. After that, we'll talk about shaping the story. And finally, we'll wrap up with delivery and visual style. Let's get into it.
Starting off with part 1, the invisible language. This is all about nailing down that technical foundation before we get into the really creative stuff.
Now, it's kind of the great irony of filmmaking, isn't it? You go out, you spend thousands of dollars on a fancy cinema camera, only for the footage to look worse than what comes out of your smartphone. Well, at first, anyway. If you've ever dropped professional digital footage into your timeline, you've probably felt that instant wave of frustration seeing a completely flat, dull, washed-out image. But here's the thing. That flat, gray image is log footage, and it is deliberately designed to look like that. It preserves the maximum amount of dynamic range, meaning all that incredibly precious detail sandwiched between the darkest shadows and the brightest highlights. It doesn't look filmic right out of the camera, because it's simply not supposed to. It's your blank canvas, giving you, the colorist, absolute maximum flexibility to stretch and push the image later on.
Moving right along into section 2, correction versus grading. This is where we talk about the fundamental paradigm shift every single filmmaker has to make.
When you open up Resolve, you're actually doing two entirely different jobs, and you absolutely cannot mix them up. On one side, you have color correction. This is purely technical. We're talking exposure, white balance, skin tones, and matching camera inconsistencies. Your one and only goal here is to make the footage look natural, balanced, and perfectly accurate. Then, on the other side, you have color grading. This is the fun part, the creative stage. It's where you shape emotion, atmosphere, and your cinematic identity. Basically, correction makes the footage accurate, while grading makes it artistic. And the golden rule? You absolutely must correct before you grade. Every single time.
To do this right, professional grading follows a very strict hierarchy of primary correction to build that solid foundation. First, you start with exposure, dialing in your brightness using the lift, gamma, and gain controls, which, by the way, correspond directly to your shadows, midtones, and highlights. Then you move to contrast to carve out some depth, being super careful not to crush your shadows or lose any of that hard-earned detail. Step 3 is white balance. This is where you get those natural skin tones by pulling out any nasty warm orange or cool blue color casts. Step 4 is dialing in your saturation for realistic color intensity. And listen, only after you have completely moved through those 4 foundational steps do you ever even think about touching step 5, which is applying your creative look.
Okay, let's jump into section 3, the professional toolkit, where we actually step into the color page and start working with some surgical precision. Let's get right into the actual tools professionals use to measure their images, because there is an absolute golden rule in color grading. Never, ever rely on your monitor alone. Seriously, your eyes will deceive you, and your monitor is probably uncalibrated anyway. Instead, you rely on scopes. These are your objective measurement tools. We've got the waveform, which shows you exactly how brightness is distributed from the pitch black shadows at the bottom all the way to the brightest highlights at the top. We've got the RGB parade, which separates your red, green, and blue channels so you can perfectly balance your colors and spot any unwanted color casts instantly. And of course, the vector scope. This maps out color intensity and direction, making it absolutely 100% essential for nailing accurate skin tones. Once your primary correction is totally balanced on a global level, we move to secondary correction. This is where things get really fun, targeting very specific areas of the image. DaVinci Resolve gives you some incredible tools for this. First up, qualifiers. These let you isolate specific colors, like say you just want to grab the blue sky or a patch of green grass and tweak it without messing up the rest of the shot. Then we have power windows, which let you isolate physical areas using shapes like circles or gradients. You could literally draw a window right over a subject's face just to brighten it up a touch. And the real magic? The tracking. You can track that window so it automatically follows the actor's face as they move through the scene. This is how grading becomes truly surgical, and honestly, it is pretty mind-blowing the first time you see it in action. Which brings us right to section 4, shaping the story. This is where we're going to slow down a bit, step away from the technical dials, and really explore the psychology of what we're actually creating. It's amazing how simple color palettes directly manipulate human emotion. When we build a cinematic look using warm tones, pushing the image toward those rich oranges, yellows, and reds, we're actually subconsciously signaling the audience. Warm tones make a scene feel nostalgic. They feel romantic. They just feel deeply human and inviting. Think of a beautifully lit wedding video or a golden hour scene in a massive blockbuster. The warmth is literally telling you how to feel before a single word of dialogue is even spoken. But look what happens when we completely reverse that. By pushing those exact same shadows toward cool, icy blue tones, the emotional weight of the scene shifts instantly. Suddenly, the image feels distant, it feels highly dramatic, it feels mysterious, or even kind of dangerous. Think of a tense thriller or a sci-fi film, like that famous green-blue tint they used in The Matrix to make the artificial world feel subconsciously sterile and off-putting. Every single color adjustment you make changes human perception, and that right there is the true superpower of the colorist. Now, to apply all these different adjustments, DaVinci Resolve uses something called nodes. Look, I know the node graph can look incredibly intimidating, especially if you're used to simple layers in a standard video editor. It can totally feel like you're staring at complex software code, but seriously, don't let it scare you. Think of nodes simply as modular, stackable building blocks. Instead of piling 50 different effects onto one single clip until it breaks, each node is just a separate little block that performs one specific, highly organized task. To show you how manageable this actually is, check out this linear, super digestible recipe for a professional node tree workflow. You start with your raw footage on the left, and you just flow right to a final cinematic look on the right. Node 1, that's for noise reduction. Node 2 is where you dial in your white balance and exposure. Node 3 shapes your contrast. Node 4 isolates and protects your skin tones. Node 5 is where you finally get to apply your creative look or your LUT. And Node 6 is your finish, maybe adding some subtle film grain to bring back that organic cinematic realism. By separating these steps into individual blocks, you stay incredibly organized and keep total control over your image the whole way through. Let's move on to our final section, Section 5, Delivery and Visual Style, because honestly, a brilliant color grade is completely useless if it just falls apart the second you export it. You really have to ensure your grade survives the export process. Breaking it down, delivering for YouTube means you need to prioritize high bit rates in a Rec. 709 space with the correct gamma tagging. But if you're grading for Instagram, well, then you have to optimize for heavy compression and mobile displays, which usually means you need slightly stronger contrast and maybe elevated saturation, just because phone screens display colors so differently. And hey, if you're lucky enough to be grading for a massive cinema screen, then your priority is DCP conversion and incredibly accurate gamma for professional projection. As you get comfortable with all these technical workflows, you're naturally going to want to develop your own signature style. But here is perhaps the most important lesson you can take away from this explainer. LUTs are not magic. You cannot just slap a preset on your footage and call it cinematic. It doesn't work like that. The absolute best colorists out there cultivate taste and, honestly, restraint. They study natural light, they study classical paintings, and they deeply understand human emotion. The goal is never to just show off your technical skills with wild, crazy colors. The ultimate goal is to ensure your color palette directly supports the story being told on screen. And that perfectly leads us to our final thought for today. Color grading isn't just about making your footage look cool. It's about shaping human perception itself. Now that you understand the invisible language of cinema, the objective tools you need to measure it, and the node workflows to actually build it, the only thing left to do is for you to start experimenting. So the very next time you drop a piece of footage into DaVinci Resolve, I want you to ask yourself, what story will your colors tell? Thank you so much for watching this explainer. Keep observing light, keep developing your eye, and I'll catch you in the next one.